St. Louis Post-Dispatch columnist, contributor to the Big 550 KTRS every Tuesday and Thursday. Good morning, Tony.
Good morning, McGraw. Good morning, Kelly. How is
Hi,
everybody
Tony.
on this rainy day?
We're doing all right. So we wake up this morning to the news that Travis Brown and Mayor Slay were in Washington, D.C. to investigate or at least explore the possibility of putting Lambert Airport into private hands. Caught a lot of people by shock, at least me. So explain this to us. What are you thinking? And give us a little primer on all this.
Well, this is something that I heard rumbles about some time ago and wasn't able to track down whether or not it's real. It's obviously real. There's been some quiet behind the scenes work on this for a period of time. This appears to be Rex Sinquefield's strategy to get rid of the earnings tax, to me. It may well be something else as well, but if Rex is involved, the earnings tax is involved. That's what he wants the city to get rid of, and he can't do it if he can't come up with some alternative revenue. If you remember right, when he started talking about having the city vote on earnings tax several years ago, he was challenged, including by the editorial page when I was the editorial page editor, saying, look, you want to get rid of the earnings tax? Make up the revenue. And he couldn't do it. He had some consultants come up with a report, and they basically blanked out. They didn't have alternative revenue to replace the earnings tax. Well, he really wants the earnings tax gone, and Lambert Airport is a big asset that now the city is basically talking about selling. It's interesting. A lot of people immediately react and say Travis Brown's involved, Rex Sinquefield's involved. No way. I'm not of that ilk, in part because one of the things that Rex Sinquefield works on that I happen to agree with is the concept of city-county merger. I think this may be a piece of that. If you look at the story today in the Post-Dispatch, both Lyda Cruzan, the incoming mayor, and Steve Stinger, the county executive, who, by the way, was at Lyda Cruzan's victory party, had similarly nice things to say, generic things, but similarly nice things to say. That tells me they've known about this and that the fix is in on this thing. The other thing that tells me is it's time to start watching it very, very carefully. We have to keep an eye on the money. We have to start watching the consultants lining up and see who's getting paid on this thing. That's always the danger when you talk about public-private partnerships. Somebody's going to make some money. I'm not opposed to somebody making some money, but it's how they make it that matters if city assets are going to be involved. Okay,
so assuming you are correct, evidence not, right? So assuming you are correct, and this is an earnings tax play, how do they raise money by selling the airport? How much is it worth? How would that work?
That's a lot of those details I'm unfamiliar with at this point, but the idea is it's a big asset that a private company somewhere, a very large private company, will look at and say, we can run that so much better than the city, and we can make a little bit off of the restaurants, and we can increase fees here, and we can move some landings and increase efficiency, particularly if it's a company that ultimately says, you know what, if this works in St. Louis, I can buy myself 5 or 6 other airports, and now I'm making some real money. I mean, that's the play here. There's some big private equity out there that is looking to buy government assets because the government has been starved of any money. St. Louis is not the only city in the world that is struggling right now because it is in a state that refuses to raise taxes to pay for anything. And so there are big companies out there that are feeding this chatter that figure they can siphon a little bit here and a little bit there, and they can manage a little bit better, and that's probably true. There are some arguments to be made in terms of privatization in which some companies can manage things much better than government can. And so they can skim a little bit of profit, and some of the money that's going back into the airport comes back into the city in terms of lease payments in some capacity. That's the argument. But the airport has only been producing about $6 million a year revenue coming back to the city over the last several years. And so the devil is in the details. When a company comes in and bids on this, the key what is the guarantee that the city is getting its payments? You can't have some open-ended agreement where the private company says, well, we think we can save you $7 million a year, and as long as we do that, all that money comes back to you. And then the company doesn't save $7 million a year, and the city's given away an asset and gets nothing. Yeah. So, the devil is in the details.
Let me ask you something that was in the article and that's been sort of, it was hot a couple of years ago. It sort of died down, I guess, for a while, and that is the cargo area, the cargo space to fly in goods from China, and St. Louis and Lambert would be the Midwest hub, if you will. Does that have anything to do with this, do you think?
I think that may have something to do with this. I mean, I was in favor of the China hub back when it was proposed. I think if you talk to people in the business community and the Chamber of Commerce and people that work on the river and deal with rail and deal with the airport, St. Louis's greatest asset is being in the middle of the country and being able to take advantage of its ability to move goods and services. And cargo is part of that, and that is one of the areas where we as a city business community need to be taking advantage of the assets that we have.
Senator Blunt talks about that quite a bit. So you agree with Rex and Senator Blunt. What's going on now with you, Tony Messenger?
It's Trump's world we're all just living in.
Tony, thanks. Appreciate your insights. By the way, Travis Brown going to be on the show in the 9 o'clock hour. We'll get his thoughts on this as well. Tony, thanks for checking in.
Good to talk to you.
All right.
Bye.
St. Louis Closet, Tony, Tuesdays and Thursdays with us, St. Louis Post-Dispatch columnist. Agree with him, disagree with him.